Narcissistic people tend to have that grandiose sense of self-importance. They're arrogant enough to believe they're always right. They're willing to exploit people to get their needs met. They require that excessive attention. They can be quite fragile on the inside, and who they are deep down is often very different to who they show themselves to be on the outside. They have that excessive need for admiration and attention and validation from those around them, often due to their own underlying insecurities, which are usually easily triggered, and they can be easily triggered by abandonment, by criticism, by rejection. We can all have insecurities. We can all know and recognise that we don't really like being rejected. We don't really like being abandoned. We don't really like negative criticism. And sometimes even constructive feedback can hit us hard. However, we can recognise these things within ourselves. We don't usually seek to punish another person. Narcissistic people tend to be highly sensitive to criticism, constructive or not, and they react in a very defensive manner. Not only do they do this, they usually go all out to criticize you and have subtle digs at you and try to bring you down. And as they lack the empathy to care about you, when you're willing to be vulnerable, which they're not, and open, which they're not, with them to explain your feelings, they use your feelings against you and they gaslight you and they purposely set out to hurt you. And then when you go and explain your feelings to them, they accuse you of being the one who is too sensitive so that they can blame everything on you and perceive themselves to be above you, to be superior to you, not recognizing the damage that they are creating. They seek that constant need for validation. They crave that excessive attention. They seek that admiration from those around them to hide their own deep-rooted insecurities. They lack the empathy to care about other people because they're focused on themselves. So if you share some bad news with them, they're often going to turn it on to how they've suffered far worse than you. Or if something has happened to somebody, you might be watching something horrendous on the television and the narcissist will, oh good, I'm glad it's happened to them. They deserved it. Because they lack the empathy. They tell on themselves with those inappropriate remarks. They have a very fragile self-esteem, so they seek reassurance from those around them, which is often why when you don't agree with them, they're not interested in seeing your point of view. Instead, they get offended and seek to criticize you and then claim that you're the one that's overreacting so that they can feel better about themselves. They're very manipulative and often in those passive aggressive ways, the silent treatments, the sulks, the procrastination. However, they wear you down so that you feel like you're unable to do stuff, and then they accuse you of being the lazy one while they expect you to wait hand and foot on them. They come at you with that emotional blackmail. They try to guilt trip you to get their needs met by you. Now, not all people who display these kinds of behaviours are fragile narcissistic people. Those who can recognise their behaviour and learn to change their behaviour can do so for themselves. What you'll often notice with a narcissist is they don't recognise the issues within their own behaviour. They go all out to blame and shame everybody else. Therefore, they can't identify with their negative behaviour. They identify within their negative behaviour by provoking it in another and then blaming the other person. So they don't change. They just find new ways to lie and manipulate to get their needs met.